Hello, everyone, and welcome to Santa Clara High School's Roar the Podcast.
I'm Elias Panou, and I'm a sophomore at Santa Clara High School, and I am the opinion section editor for Roar.
I'm Miyauchi-Garde, and I'm a sophomore at Santa Clara High School, and I'm a staff writer for the opinion section of the Roar.
And I am Nathaniel Hekster. I am the sophomore at Santa Clara High School, and I am a alt media editor for the Roar.
So, let's just go over our pronouns real quickly. I am he, him.
Nat is he, him as well.
Isa is she, her.
Okay, that's great. So for our topic today, and this is a little bit an odd topic if you really think about it, but we're going to get into it, and you're probably going to get into it as well, and we're going to have a fun time. We're going to discuss potatoes and the culture that kind of surrounds them, because potatoes are really, really important to different cultures around the universe, around the world, and to different people. And we really thought that it's actually an element of food and the rich diversity that unites people. So it's a conversation worth having. Let's talk a little bit about the history of potatoes first, and we can kind of get an idea of where they came from. So potatoes were first cultivated by native Indians south of the Rio Grande, about 8,000 BC. And I think, to be exact and specific, those were the Peruvian natives or indigenous people. And they only first got introduced to the European people and the rest of the world during the Columbian Exchange, when Hernan Cortez came about and his colonial army, took over and stole over most of South America. And that's a whole other history. But during the Columbian Exchange, that's kind of when we can see potatoes make their first appearance. It's interesting enough.
Yeah, and since then, potatoes have also been discovered in many other parts of the world. They seem to have an extremely diverse and to be very adaptable to the environments that they're in. NASA has been doing certain studies about growing potatoes on Mars. They believe that the Martian soil, even though it's it's barely fertile, and it's just Mars as in itself is overall a very harsh environment. They believe that potatoes can grow to an amount where they can feed the astronauts on the Mars colony.
And I guess for more fun facts about a potato, potatoes are the fourth largest staple crop around the world. Very important to several different cultures: European, American, Asian, African, and etc. And so we can kind of see here at first what they kind of mean to our different cultures.
You can see the diversity of potatoes even in a single household. Like mine, I'm Japanese and mixed with a bunch of other stuff like Irish, but we make traditional things. Well, not that traditional, but we make these things called korokke, which are like potatoes that are smashed and fried, and you can put certain things in it like meat or beans or anything.
Right. In my household, in my dad's house, we're Dutch. We have this type of sort of mashed potato called stamppot. Now, I'm unaware of their origins, if it's Dutch or somewhere else from Europe or perhaps Africa, but it could be very inaccurate on that, so don't take my word. It's essentially potatoes that are boiled, mashed, and you add carrots to them, and you can eat them with, I forget the name, but it's a soy sauce-esque type sauce. And it's not just carrots. You can add other stuff, such as kale and other vegetables, to the point where your dinner plate can look like many European flags. Well, the greens, oranges, whites, and reds.
I guess there's not really much to be said on my behalf. The first thing that automatically comes to my mind, nationality-wise, in Swedish culture, potatoes are just very common. You just boil them. They're not really much spices you add to them, right, etc. But more so ethnically, in my family, we're more like Greek potatoes. You can roast them. You add olive oil. You add oregano, a little bit of salt, and oftentimes they accompany other larger meats that we either get, barbecued, spit roasted, or you can kind of just put them with really anything. And when they get nice and roasted, they can accompany, say, something like a parsley-based marinade on a chicken very well. And you can kind of see how people around the world are just getting really creative. More so, not fancy. Actually, no, creative's the right word with this kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, creativity is a big word when we are talking about dishes from vast different cultures over the place, all over the world. This planet has over 7 billion people, each of which are probably aware of some form of potato recipe, at the very least 5 billion. And each of these people make potato recipes in their own way. They add their own little touch to it. And this is how the evolution of food and dishes is how it happens, essentially. Now, I don't know if our audience is aware of Darwinism, but it's essentially the best dishes survive and the bad ones don't.
So obviously, right now, my source is just a whole variety of research. Well, we can kind of talk about the different types of potatoes, because different types of potatoes taste different. Sir Walter Raleigh, he first introduced the potato in Londonderry in Ireland back in the 1850s. And those were the russet type of potatoes, and those became an important stable crop entirely around Europe. So when the immigrants of Northern and the Republic of Ireland came around here, they brought around the russet potato, and from there they cultivated more types. That's why things such as the Yukon Gold potato, the Russian potatoes, and sweet potatoes have all become basically important crops around most of the Midwestern U.S. and even extending here into the West and Southwest. For example, Idaho, that's like their main export, and it's potatoes, and it's become such an important part of life and such an important upholding of the economy. What are your favorite types of potatoes?
Since there are so many different types of potatoes and ways to make them, it's definitely hard to choose. But of course, there's super popular ones like French fries. And even from there, there's a bunch of different ways to cook them. You can either put them in the oven or more popularly air fry them or fry them in oil, which are all good, of course.
But really, what I kind of view is unhealthiness, never bothers me. And we have all lovely type of flavors. And it's like really, again, we're coming back to creativity here. You can make even ketchup, potato chips, salt and vinegar. There's jalapeno, and there's even prawn cocktail. I guess you don't really have those here. I miss those. Nat, what are your kind of favorites?
I'm gonna go basic American and say French fries. Just French fries alone are extremely diverse. Taking all the diversities of potatoes themselves and then taking this one type of potato, looking at the different types of varieties. We have thick French fries, we have little skinny ones, we have garlic French fries, and haven't even delved into the toppings yet of French fries. Like Elias said, he mentioned ketchup, that's very popular in French fries. And the Netherlands, we do a lot of mayonnaise on our French fries. And this may sound extremely weird and distasteful to those who haven't heard of it, but peanut sauce. It sounds weird, I know. I was suspicious when I first heard of it, but it actually tastes really good.
So, protecting these stable crops with carbon in the air, soil is actually acidifying, and when that happens, again, potatoes are very, very resilient, but there's going to come a certain threshold that they're not going to be able to survive in the soil, and they're not going to be able to actually be grown. The harvests are going to fail, and even with modern inventions such as pesticides and just growth aids, it's not going to work. So, Nat, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, as you can see with the Irish potato famine, a country which heavily relied on potatoes to feed its people had. Now, I'm unaware of the causes of the crop damage, but it experienced some severe damage. So much so, by the time that the famine was over, nearly 1 million people died. Now, this may not seem a lot in today's standards, but back then, the population was significantly smaller. Even in the 1940s, the world population was like 3 billion. So 1 million people made a lot more of a difference than it does today. And that's just one small example. Other countries definitely rely on potatoes at some extent. Most countries, I would say, rely on potatoes to a certain extent to feed their people. Now, some countries, especially those that have really fast-growing economies and healthy, sturdy, and big economies will probably be able to recover if climate change were to make potatoes not be able to live on Earth anymore. But like I said, I'm not entirely sure if that's a problem with potatoes specifically, due just to their extreme adaptability. There are species of potatoes near the equator that, if climate change were to get so bad to the point where those potatoes in the equator couldn't survive, you can move them up north or down south to a colder environment. But obviously, we want to try to avoid that kind of situation, and I'm sure we'll have a lot of other big problems at that. Issa, do you have anything else to say about this?
And I don't know as much about the history of potatoes as these two super smart guys, but I do know that a lot of people really love potatoes, all the different types, fries, chips, baked potatoes, everything. Um, it's just a really big part of everybody's culture, and as they have said, that they're a big deal, and it's important that we try to make sure that they stay healthy and that we are still able to produce them.
So thank you everyone for your time, and hope you take this as a public service announcement. This is Elias Panou signing off.
This is Issa Miyauchi-Garde signing off.
This is Nathaniel Hekster. I hope you had a great time. Signing off.